Falcons haven't had a lot of great performances here in 2019, but there's one thing all the best games have had in common, including last Sunday against San Francisco. They've taken place away from home. Can the Falcons find some magic inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium? We'll talk about it next here on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
So let me just say this at the top. That vest is kind of billowing out at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Not very flattering. Looks me off the top. My hair's all messed up.
You look great, man. It's the holidays. You've been probably Christmas shopping. You did any Christmas shopping yet?
I got more to do. I'm doing some after we're done here today.
Okay.
I got a lot more to do. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. First, though, we'll talk some Falcons football, get ready for the Falcons and the Jags on Sunday. And then after that, we'll shop for Christmas and get ready to enjoy that. By the way, on the subject of that, no show for us on Monday. We're going to be off to be spending some time with our family and friends for Christmas. But we'll be back a week from now on Friday to get ready for the regular season finale and whatever is left to come for the Falcons after that. We'll be talking about that 1 week from now. So no show for us Monday. We're back again at our normal time a week from today on Friday at 1 p.m. for AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Now, Chuck, Falcons got one on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there was something on my mind about this game that I wanted to talk to you about because I do think it's kind of a curiosity. And the one thing that's important to point out here is this is not just an issue that has plagued Atlanta. It's really an issue for the entirety of the league. And as a way of kind of setting this up, let me let you hear from Falcons coach Dan Quinn, who this week talked about the evolution that his team has undergone over the course of the season. He feels like what we've seen lately, including the win against San Francisco, was really the truest sense of who Atlanta really is. But in the midst of talking about that, this week from Flowery Branch also mentioned something that Atlanta has an opportunity to do on Sunday. Here's what Dan Quinn said about that.
I believe you're starting to see the identity more of our team come through. I think it's a bunch of fighters for sure. It didn't come out as early as we'd like, but I think over the last 5 or 6 weeks we've certainly seen more of that in terms of the style, the complementary football, better taking care of the ball. Those are things that are important to us as we're heading to our last home game for this year. So we're pumped to see our fans and thank them for their support.
So obviously the first part of that comment, it's something we've been through over and over again, the whole notion of, hey, the second half is the real Falcons, the first half is the fake Falcons, and you can decide for yourself if you think that's true or not.
The fake Falcons?
We've been down that road a lot. But the end there, Quinn talking about a chance to be, home game finale, chance to be in front of the fans one more time. But being in front of the home fans is something that Atlanta has had a really hard time with. Let me give you some numbers that D. Orlando Ledbetter gave you in the AJC this week. Falcons just 2-5 at home this year, after being 4-4 at home in 2018, 5-3 at home in 2017. So in the totality of the existence of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Falcons have a losing record there at just 11-12 on the year. Now, it's worth pointing out that this is not just Atlanta who's dealt with this. If you care about point spreads, things like that, home teams this year have covered the spread less than 42% of the time, according to Warren Sharp from Sharp Football Analysis. So Atlanta, very much in line with much of the rest of the NFL, not a dominant home field advantage, but our viewers don't really care about the rest of the league.
No.
They just care about the Falcons. What can Atlanta do to regain a home field advantage at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, rivaling some of the best atmospheres that you and I have talked about when your team was playing in the Georgia Dome?
Be relevant. You got to be relevant in December. And that's the biggest thing for the Falcons. If we're talking about a playoff game, or let's even look at it like this. If we're even talking about two average teams like Philadelphia versus Dallas, you look at their records. I mean, these records aren't, these aren't teams that, exude confidence that they're going to go far to playoffs.
Right.
But what is it, though? They're in the mix.
Right.
They're in the dance. So the Falcons, I mean, it's going to take them being in a situation where fans want to care, where there's got to be an excitement, around the city. But it starts with those little things, and you got to win in the beginning of the season. You got to win because right now, I mean, look, think if the Falcons had played this way in the second half. And we've been talking about this like you just said, but I mean, you got to be relevant in December if you want your fan to continue to build your fan base.
Because here's the one thing I do believe, that some people, and this is like not just a Falcons conversation, this happens in all sports, where, when the Chicago Bulls moved from the old Chicago Stadium to the United Center, people said, oh, it's too nice. It's not as good as an atmosphere as it used to be. When, you move from the Georgia Dome to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium's too nice. There are too many, there are too many, cool bars to go to. There's too many, relaxing seat options to go to. Too many kind of bells and whistles to sort of distract you from the game. It's too nice. But when you go to an SEC championship game, the noise level is through the roof. When Oklahoma plays LSU in the same stadium in a couple of weeks, or at the end of next weekend, the atmosphere is going to be through the roof. I'm not a believer, and this has been true in sports over and over again. I'm not a believer that going from a less nice stadium, a little bit more Spartan environment, to a state-of-the-art facility like Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that automatically depresses your fan noise and automatically reduces your atmosphere. I believe that Falcons games can be just as loud, have the potential of being just as loud as it is for an SEC championship game. That is a possibility that exists here. The stadium being as nice as it is, and boy, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is sure enough nice, but the stadium being as nice as it is, I don't think it prohibits the Falcons from creating that atmosphere, even though admittedly it's a lot of these new stadiums around the league where atmospheres seem to be suffering right now.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't want to be one of those guys who starts talking about I guess you'd call them the analytics of the PSLs, the personnel seat licensing and all that stuff. But it just seems to me the Falcons fans aren't getting what they want. Right, so if the Falcons had came out, this year with guns a-blazing, people would be there. But that's what you want to think. So last year, me and my kids went to the Minnesota game. Yeah. Now remember, Minnesota, they were one of the favorites last year at that time to go to the Super Bowl. I went to the Benz, and we were sitting up in, on one side of the Benz, and some of our, viewers might have been on this side. The sun shines down on you. The top was open. Yeah. So, as the sun was shining on us about the second quarter, we moved all the way down to the front. Right. And my seats, I was up there in the X. I wasn't on the front row.
Yeah, sure.
So, but to
You're
me,
a man of the people.
Yeah. Well, I'm always in the crowd now. No VIPs for Chuck. But so to me, God, it's perplexing because Atlanta Falcons, we get this reputation, they're fickle. But it's one of those things in this town that, because of the lack of success, and this is what I tell Atlanta fans, and it's just, okay, we got to accept it. And it's just my theory. You might see things differently. This town it's not like our city's on a winning streak of Super Bowls, World Series, and NBA championships, right? Evander been gone, so we can't brag on Evander, right? So now, I tell you what, and let me tell you this, when you see the other teams that are struggling, then you see like Georgia, it's like, wow. Everybody's riding with Georgia, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
But now, let's look at where we are. And I'm not being Debbie Downer. Georgia has had it's an unbelievable run right now. Unbelievable. But now the expectations are so high, people look at Georgia like, oh, they're not. What? And they won, you
win enough, those expectations change. It makes it hard to please people like that.
So I'm looking at the climate, and that includes Georgia. So even now, it's easy for people to say, well, they're not, they can't get over the hump. So you got to look at the teams, man. Look at the Falcons. I love us to death. Yeah. Hawks. Look at the Hawks right now. Right. Then you throw in the Braves, their last debacle. Yeah. So when you think of things that are going on here, and then I forgot about Georgia Tech. And we would.
Most people do.
So all the things that we're talking about, the only team in town, really, that's bringing, the ultimate, the Braves did pretty good, but it's the Dogs. It's the Dogs, in my opinion. So that has a lot to do with the fans.
Kay Green on YouTube says, regardless if it's on the road or not, this is football, so go out and do your job, compete to win. I think the Kay's probably right about that. No matter where the game's played, Falcons have an obligation to go out there and try to win it. However, I can't help but think about this, though, Kay. Imagine if what happened for the Falcons against the Saints in New Orleans had happened in Atlanta. Imagine what that could have done for your fan support to be able to thrill your own fans in your own stadium. Imagine had the San Francisco win that took place this past Sunday. Imagine had that happen in Atlanta. Imagine how much the Falcons fans in the building would have had to cheer for. There's something to be said for you really have an opportunity. Jacksonville on Sunday is not the same kind of marquee opponent, so Falcons fans won't be quite as thrilled as they would have been by beating one of the NFC's best teams. But if you can go out there and put a good game together, a repeat of what happened against Carolina possibly. If you're able to go out there and do that, you have a chance sort of one fan at a time to win them over and say, you know what, Mercedes-Benz Stadium was a really fun place to be today. I want to come back here and be a part of this again, because winning is contagious. Players like to be around winning organizations, but fans also like to make sure they don't get too far away from a winning organization. They'll make their way down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They'll sit there and be a part of that because it's just fun to be a part of an atmosphere when things are winning. So Atlanta does have a chance on Sunday, even though this is kind of a lost season and there's really no result that's going to result in anything for Atlanta. You can win a few fans over by putting on a show inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, similar to what you've been able to do in some of the most hostile road venues in the NFL. Good team on the road, San Francisco. Good team on the road, New Orleans. Following that up the following week at Carolina. Even though Carolina's not a great team, Atlanta was dominant in that game 2 weeks in a row on the road.
Boy, you know what? And when you're talking about winning at home, you got to win the home games. That's one of the things that being 2-5, that's just ugly. I mean, until you threw that number out there, I was like, oh, it sounded a lot uglier when you threw it out when you think about it.
Yeah.
But this is one of those games where, as a fan, you're either on one side or the other. So when one side they win, well, they just beat on an average Jacksonville team. It doesn't matter. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the Falcon fan that, ride and die with the Falcon, all wins are good. You want your team to win. But now when you look at it from a player standpoint, you're trying to win. I mean, because at the end of the day, you want to try to do what? You want to, put out a great product, right? If you're Dan Quinn, as you just saw what he said when he was speaking, that's like, hey, man, we're doing a good job in the second half. We're improving. Where could this go? So there are a lot of reasons why you want to win, but this to me, this is one of those games where I've been in the old dome. I never played in the band. Man, it's kind of, when you come out there for that first stretch, matter of fact, there's a time where all the players, when they come out, they're kind of mingling. They'll talk to other guys. What's up, man? Hey, man, what's going on, Yannick? Hey, slapping fire, hugging, talking about college. I've been in the Georgia Dome, and the Falcon fans, and they like to tailgate too. Yeah. So it's almost nobody in there. Right. I mean, it's literally almost nobody in there. And when you go to the stretch, when they're doing, they're going through all their stretches and things like that, that's when it kind of, the energy, you got to have you got to generate some false enthusiasm energy, believe it or not. Because the crowd is big. Well, it's big. The crowd's big.
The Atlanta Hawks, the NBA team here in the city, had a funny tweet about this a couple of weeks ago before the season began, kind of mocking the fact that, the game's 7:30 p.m., Hawks fans getting ready to leave around 7:30 to go there and be a part of that. And I think for NFL, not just in Atlanta, but for those 1 p.m. starts, I think one of the things that these teams got to figure out is, because the tailgate window is shortened, you can't get there. It's not college football where people are getting there at 6 a.m. to tailgate. Downtown Atlanta, it's not quite so easy to do sometimes. So you get this sort of small tailgate window before the 1 p.m. games.
Church.
You got church.
Because church affects, for me.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, church affects me a little bit, really. It does.
For a 1 o'clock start, it affects a lot of people.
Church affects my game day stuff now that I've gotten a little older.
Yeah.
I started going to church more. It didn't used to. Hey, I used to be there, at 9 o'clock with the Falcons.
That's real.
About a decade ago.
That's real. So I think for Atlanta and a lot of teams around the NFL, getting those fans to hurry up and get there and get through that tailgate and be seated in time for that 1 o'clock start. That is a challenge that the Falcons and a lot of teams around the NFL face right now. Because if you're watching Red Zone Channel or something like that on Sundays, you see a lot of empty seats here at the start of these 1 o'clock games.
Yes, you do.
That's a good point.
Let me tell you something from a Falcons standpoint that I'm excited that the Falcons are going to work, that are working on. Arthur's kind of made a commitment, I guess, on the west side. The parking is absolutely terrible at the Dome.
Is that right?
At the Georgia Dome, I mean, for years, where would you tailgate? I mean, you got to tailgate.
I think they've done a lot to improve that with the new venue. A lot to improve that.
And that's one of the things I hope they continue to do.
Yeah.
They have done a lot. Right. Because as the bands was just getting started, they had did all that. Man, you be tailgating, the asphalt slanted. You got the tent going this way, and you in the alleyway. So I just think, as Falcon fans start, getting used to also with those situations, but it comes down to winning. I'm not blaming the fans. I ain't blaming y'all.
No, I think that's right.
Hey, if the Falcons, and I'm a former player, if the Falcons were rocking and rolling, and we Gary play, if this is like Dallas and Philly this weekend, have a chance to win the NFC East, man, I am going there. Hey, I'm telling my wife, we got to get out of church early. We got to go to the early service. Yeah. But in this situation right here, man, I'm at home just looking at Red Zone.
I understand where you're coming from. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. That's Chuck Smith, the former Atlanta Falcon. My name is Brandon Adams. Thanks to have you with us, and a huge thanks to Miller Lite for making it all possible. They are the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it is just 96 calories. A few of your comments, and then we'll talk about a couple of other things, including a very interesting look at Julio Jones here coming up in just a moment. Lisa Shepard says winning cures everything. Lisa, I think you're 100% right about that. Joey Couch on the subject of some of these starters coming back for next year. Obviously, one way or another, Chuck, this offseason is going to be fascinating because it's either going to involve new coach, new GM, a lot of the same regime, kind of trying to find some of the magic that the second half of the season has provided. It is going to be a very interesting debate. 2 more games this season and then moving on to an offseason filled with a lot of intrigue. One of the things that you love about what you've seen recently is Chris Lindstrom, coming back from injury, has stepped in. He looks like he's an obvious starter moving forward. Other debates about who's going to be back here again next year. Off-season on the NFL has gotten to be incredibly fun, and for Atlanta, I believe this organization is going to really be in the thick of that off-season conversation.
I do too, because there are going to be moves that they have to do in-house, and I'm not even sure about how the salary cap works. You've talked about how high it is, but think about this off-season. Let me just talk about personnel from a defensive side. You know, we already know. Do you sign Vic Beasley to a big contract? Do you bring Vic back?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what he's doing now, Vic mess around and get 10, 12 sacks.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, now Vic can actually play, right? You got Devondre Campbell. What's going to happen with him? He's coming up on his deal, right?
Yeah.
Then things like this. What about Keanu Neal? Do we need to draft a safety?
Right.
You know, so many stories like Deidre Sanat. What happened to him? Right. That's the 3rd rounder, right? So when you look at some of these situations, some of the guys, who we're going to put next to Grady?
Yeah.
Another storyline. Here's another storyline that happens in the offseason. Tack McKinley.
Exactly.
I mean, Tack is injured. He's had multiple shoulder injuries. So as you look at the development, let's go also Alex Mack.
That's right.
So when you look at the personnel and the things that Austin Hooper.
That's right.
So all these different things.
They better be bringing him back.
Yeah, but think of all this offseason is going to be absolutely interesting because the Falcons, the situation that they're in, outside of the coach, the GM, and all the things that they got to do at personnel.
Let me read Tyler Caruth's comment, who says, I personally think the Falcons should have been in the playoffs this year. How about that, to go back to what you heard from Quinn a moment ago of, hey, it may have taken us a while to show the fight that we're about, but what we've seen lately, and I'm paraphrasing, but Quinn would say, what we've seen lately is our team. This is the fight we expected to show all year. But I've also seen some of the people on TV. I saw Shannon Sharp say this on Fox, for instance, that when Atlanta goes out and beats San Francisco, it kind of gives you a glimpse of what it should have been all along. How much do you buy into that? Shannon Sharp said that on his TV program on FS1 this week, that, hey, if you're good enough to beat San Francisco on the road and you're good enough to beat New Orleans on the road, then you should have been beating some other teams before that along the year.
No question.
Yeah.
Shannon's 100% correct, but to me, that makes it even worse. Somebody has got to be held accountable now for that.
Yeah.
I'm not, whether it's the players or the coaches, I don't know. But to me, I'm meshing it together because if you can beat Frisco, you can beat New Orleans, 2 teams that are clearly in the running for having an opportunity to represent the NFC and the play, in the NFC Championship. What is it? So this, to me, had to do with potential.
Yeah.
Not as much to what Shannon's saying, well, we should have beat. It shows the potential of what this team had, right? But then whereas if you see the potential of what they had, well, why didn't they do it? To me now, what that makes it do for me, Brandon, is look at all the bottom.
Right.
Now we see the potential. This was the ceiling.
Yeah.
Now all the things under there, why didn't it happen?
Yeah.
And those are the questions and stuff like that we can't answer.
Let me get a couple comments on YouTube as well. The real Pat Man says, man, this is the NFL, not college football. The talent differential from the worst team to the best is small. That's what any given Sunday comes from. And so I understand what he's saying there, essentially downplaying the significance of a win against San Francisco. And I guess here's my point on that, and Chuck, you can tell me if I'm wrong about this. I'll downplay Falcons winning at New Orleans or winning at San Francisco. I'll downplay one of those 2 results. But when it happens twice, when you win twice on the road against top NFC teams, that tells me this is slightly more than an any given Sunday type of thing. And ultimately, it's actually a bad message about Atlanta, about the lack of focus it probably had for most of the other 14 games. But this is not any given Sunday. That's a one-time thing. But when it's a 2-time thing, this is a talented team, at least to a certain extent, a somewhat talented team that underachieved throughout the season. So any given Sunday can kind of explain away beating New Orleans, or it can explain away beating San Francisco. But when you're toting a win against the Saints and the 49ers, that to me says a slightly larger point.
And know what it says to me? The Falcons are way better than their record says.
Yeah.
I'm just, again, And and I agree with that separation of talent and all those different things. But for me, the Falcons got more talent than Tampa. You ain't gonna tell me that. Tampa beat us, right?
Yeah.
You cannot tell me Matt's better than Jameis, right?
Yeah.
They ain't got no running game. I'll tell you this.
I'll take Julio over Mike Evans.
I'll take Ridley. I'll take Hooper. I'll take Grady. So come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we're sitting here saying the talent level, the separation of the teams, I get that there's not much difference in the talent because I say that sometimes too. But that has become a cliche. The Falcons' offensive line, we are better than Tampa. We got 2 young gunners. We got Alex Mack. We got now again, to me, and I'm just using that example against Tampa, where there is a separation of talent with some of the teams, right? So when's the last time you seen New Orleans lose to Tampa?
Right.
When?
Right.
There's a distinct difference in that talent level, so you don't see it happen. But now for us to lose to Tampa, to me, if I believe they got more talent, to me, I don't know what that intangible is. It's that lost conversation of none of us can answer.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Julio Jones. I'll get to that here coming up. One more thing from Tony Name on YouTube before we get there. On the subject of Vic Beasley, who did come up before, he says, Falcons need more consistent players. It's cool Vic Beasley's getting sacks, but he doesn't do it consistently. Dan Quinn doesn't win consistently either. He says it should be bye to both of them.
Right.
Let me focus on the Beasley part of this for a moment. One of the things I think has been lacking in Atlanta, Chuck, is a sense of accountability. And this is not me saying that Beasley definitely shouldn't be back next season. I think the Falcons should consider every option at every price that what makes sense for them. However, I do think it sends potentially a bad message. The guy like Beasley, for the most part, has kind of been ineffective for the entirety of his Falcons career. But a little flash here and a little flash at the end of this season here could somehow earn his way back onto a Falcons roster. For the Falcons fans who are concerned about a lack of accountability and the fact that no one seems to sort of pay the price for ineffective play, for less than stellar play, that to me should be a concern, especially when you have the ulterior motive of the coach and the general manager who have kind of thrown their reputation behind Vic Beasley, saying, yes, we want to bring this guy back. The fact that he could somehow validate himself with a couple of impressive performances here late at the end of an empty season, I do think Tony's right for bringing that up as a concern in the YouTube comment section.
Well, I agree, and you're right about that. And as far as the evaluation of the players and what we've seen, but again, the 2 guys who drafted Vic Beasley, Dan Quinn, right? Thomas Dimitroff.
Yeah.
So when you look at free agency, they want to give him every chance they can. They're looking for reasons to bring him back, and that's just understandable. Q is responsible for developing him the whole 9. He's accepted responsibility. Yeah. Thomas drafted him, but my thing is this: ultimately, if I'm gonna pay a guy $15 million a year, I got to know what he brings. Yeah. I got to know from A to Z his mentality, his ability to make plays, his drive to want to be the best. So those are the kind of things they got to ultimately look at Vic when it comes to that. Because again, guys have big sack years, guys don't. But then I also go back and look. Let me go look at your sack numbers in the playoff game. How many sacks did you get in the Super Bowl playoff run? I mean, you know what I'm saying, when they needed in that game. So how many sacks did you get, over the years in the big time moments? Everybody can get sacks again. I mean, not everybody can get sacks, but one thing also helps, and for the Falcons, I've talked about it, you get an offense that scores. So in all fairness to Vic, Tack, Grady, it didn't exactly help when the offense was terrible. But when you're paying a guy to be your primetime pass rusher, like a quarterback, you got to be right. And there's going to be questions out there if Vic is right. Because if you bring Vic back and Vic sits on that, sits on with that salary cap, sits on it for the next 4 or 5 years, you got to make sure. But here's my thing about Vic. I still need him to develop a signature move. Yeah, I'm good. I love he's getting numbers. I just would like to see him develop a signature move, and ultimately that, to me, will be the decisive factor if Vic's going to be a continuous great passer.
That is Chuck Smith, the former Atlanta Falcon. My name is Brandon Adams. Welcome into AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. JoJo23's got an interesting comment on YouTube. I want to read that coming up. Before that, though, let me remind you that if you like Falcons coverage, now obviously the AJC has been providing you the best, most in-depth for decades. The way to make sure you get all of that is by becoming an AJC subscriber. Go to this website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. When you choose one of those subscription options, as a special thank you to you, you get this officially branded Falcons cooler. Take it with you to your tailgate at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or stop by and enjoy it with your friends when you're watching the game. A great way to show off your Falcon fandom and a great way to get Falcons news is as an AJC subscriber. You see there on the screen. Get the daily e-paper delivered right to your device, Get a combination of the e-paper with the Sunday home edition delivered to you, or the 7-day print paper as well. All those options available. When you choose one, no matter which one you choose, you get the Falcons branded cooler as a special thank you. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Both the cooler and the AJC subscription, by the way, make great holiday gifts as well. Check it out online at subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. All right, let me read this from JoJo23 because it sets us up for where I want to go next. JoJo in our comment section says, Dan Quinn's not a good coach. He's a good guy. He fails to prepare the team consistently. He also gets beat with game planning and in-game adjustments. I'm not sure changing head coach is going to change things, though. So let me push that last part aside, deal with the first part of this. He says, Quinn's not a good coach, but he is a good guy. So, Chuck, obviously JoJo's not sitting here now, so I can't ask him this directly, but I'll ask you. Should it change a fan's opinion about Dan Quinn? The fact that the team itself seems to really enjoy still playing for Quinn. I've argued they should fire him. I think they should have fired him during the season a few weeks ago. I don't think they should have left it dangling the possibility that Quinn could have saved his job, because sometimes when you give a guy a chance to do that, he'll accidentally save his job. And by beating San Francisco last week, there's a chance that Quinn may have done that, at least in Arthur Blank's eyes. But let's say I'm wrong. Let's say the real argument here is, look at the way the Falcons players are playing for him. Look at Julio Jones here in particular. Look at the way he's going out and kind of living up to his sense of professionalism over and over again. Should that matter for a guy like JoJo or a person who's watching on Facebook or YouTube, either one, to say, hey, I'm not quite so sure about Quinn, but look at the way these players are responding to him now. As a former player, what do you say in response to that?
I say absolutely not.
Okay.
I could care less if guys like the head coach in the locker room, and not even from Q's standpoint. Let me talk about my experience. And if it relates, hey, it relates. When I was here with the Falcons, we had a fun, nice offense, run and shoot. We had a fun guy, Julio Jones. Yeah. Just a great guy. Everybody loved June. He's a player's coach. Even when they were, June's last year, everybody said, oh, yeah, should we get rid of Julio Jones? For Falcon, fans that might not know the history, in the 90s, June was a fun-loving guy. He liked to throw the ball around. Yeah. But at the end of the day, to me, what it did, it gave our guy, we got in the comfort zone. A lot of guys are in the comfort zone because, remember, they didn't. There's a allegiance of loyalty that coaches have to their players. Yeah. Because they don't want to look wrong. Right. So to me, man, for anyone to keep a job just because the players like them, absolutely not. So guess what? Julio Jones gets canned, and we get a dictator. Darren Reed said, this is how we're going to do it. Yeah. This is how we're going to win. This is what y'all going to do. Oh, no, y'all not hanging in the lobby no more playing cards. Okay. Dan took that out. Oh, no, y'all don't get off on Mondays after when you win again. I'm just telling you, we didn't. Right. But we used to be kicking it. Yeah. Dan came in, changed the culture, but guess what? We didn't need no fun players coach. We need a dictator that's going to tell us what to do. So for me, because I deal with these cats all the time, right? And I'm talking about I deal with NFL guys all the time, college guys. Especially in this new era, Brandon. These kids, these young men need dictatorship more than ever. They have so much freedom from the time they're in the 8th, 9th grade. They get to do what they want to do. People kiss their butts on social media to get them to go to a college. People, beg them to go to their little league team. They go to college, they get to do whatever they want. So now what has happened, the coaches have gotten broken because players have more power now than coaches. Okay. So now if a star player comes out and says something negative about a head coach, the coach got to step back. So to me, I need a dictatorship because these kids today need to be told, nah. I know you like OBJ. I know you like wearing a $250,000 watch. Come here, man, let me pull you up. Because the young boys ain't pulling each other up. I don't think the new players hold each other accountable. So OBJ, take that watch off, get up out of here. That's not how we roll. Yeah. So to me, a player's coach, you want a player's coach, it's going to be like Rex Ryan. Yeah. Oh, we having fun. Oh, yeah, with Rex, we kicking it. Well, we continuously, guys, at prime time moments are undisciplined. So, man, I want a dictator. Nothing against DQ. Give me a dictator because these young boys need to be told exactly what to do. They don't need any gray area. That's a really fascinating comment. Now, one guy who's not going to push back against Quinn like that apparently is Falcons receiver Julio Jones. I want to show you this. Steve Hummer, really great writer for the AJC, had a terrific column about Jones this week. And the essential gist of it is that in the midst of a season where things are not going well, watching Julio Jones continue to fight the way that he has all season long and sort of put himself out there with his professionalism has been great to see. Here's what Steve writes, and this is really good.
He says watching Julio Jones haul butt, even when it makes no difference in the big picture, might be one of the more slightly entertaining remains of this day. Hummer goes on to say, having been a vocal supporter of Dan Quinn, Jones still might play a most important role in whether the coach stays or goes. Jones couldn't have played any harder for Quinn on Sunday if he was the coach's own agent. So from that standpoint, Steve Hummer looks at Julio Jones and says, hey, here's a guy who seems to still want to really play very hard and possibly playing for Dan Quinn. This week, Julio Jones did talk about a little bit of that with Hummer himself. Let me let you hear some of the audio of Jones talking about what motivates him to keep going out and playing hard, even in a lost season, and how much of Dan Quinn's status factors into that. Here's what Julio Jones had to say.
For myself, I really don't like set goals for myself. I just want to go out there on each and every play just to be the best I can be. It's like I never base my career off stats or anything like that. It's more so about the opportunities I get. Do I make the best of them?
Do you take it on your shoulders too that we're playing for our coach?
Yeah, we play for the coaches, but at the same time, you got to play for yourself. You're a man. You got to be responsible. It's our job. Is good or bad, whatever you start, you got to finish it. So like, I always had that in me to do, and I'm gonna continue to do that. We can be, I don't know how many, whatever is at right now, 13 or 14, or whatever it is, whatever we could have been at this point. I'm still gonna do the same thing. Win, lose, or draw, you got to still bring the same stuff to the game and to work every day. And it's about who you are as a person.
Say what you will about Julio potentially playing for Dan Quinn. You can debate that. I think this needs to be said before that. First of all, the Hummer piece at AJC.com is terrific. And I do think that watching Julio Jones, there is something so graceful, something so dignified about a guy like Julio just doing his job regardless of what's on the line, regardless of how many people are in the stands at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, whether I'm watching Red Zone or watching just Falcons at 1 p.m., regardless if I've got the game on the background while I'm drinking eggnog and playing, air hockey with my kids or something like that, regardless of whatever else, Julio Jones is out there putting it on the line. I got to tell you something. That is worthy of respect.
Yeah, and when I think about legends, I think about Barry Sanders.
Yeah, that's
he was
a great
that same
comparison.
kind of guy
Great
that played no matter who was there, gave his all,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, wasn't all over the top. But I tell you one thing I do hear from Julio that I actually like, because it's something we were talking about, playing for a coach. No question, Q's this guy. You love your coach, and Q's a good guy. And they've had a lot of success together. But I also hear Julio saying, I don't care whether we play in the rain, sleet.
That's
I don't
right.
care who the coach is. I'm not worried about the quarterback. I want all those intangibles to work in my direction, but I'm a pro and I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
Now, let me just speak about this real quick about Julio. Should his support play a role in the DQ coming back? I think you definitely take that into account. You sit down and say, Julio, you might if I'm Arthur Blank, just playing Arthur Blank. I'm saying, hey, so what are some of the things that you see that Coach Quinn does well? All right. And I'm bringing Matt Ryan in there too.
Yeah,
right?
I think he deserves to say as well.
And matter of fact, maybe even Grady. Three guys, because I think that's fair. And I think players should have a say also, just at least talking about it. And I know that sounds, for some people, they're like, wow, the employees get to, talk about the coach. This is the NFL. Players have power.
These employees do.
Yeah, and these players got more.
Exactly. The vice president of marketing may not, but your star quarterback and your star wide receiver, I may be willing to listen to them on this. Yep.
Especially in the NFL. So what I would do is have that conversation, and just from the standpoint out of respect, and just see what the pulse of their feeling is as the leaders. Because as this team goes, ultimately the vibe. Because if they were to let Dan Quinn go, there's gonna have to be some guys say, "Hey man, let's work this out. We're gonna move in a different direction." But as an executive, I'm not making absolutely not one decision on what the players say.
I think that's fair. I do.
They are not schooled in executive decisions.
Yeah.
As players, they are players. But we want to, because we respect these guys, we want to hear what you say, and we'll take that into account, especially if it's something that we see that's valid that might not be true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something that they can figure out that, wow, it's that one little thing that we see, well, okay, that Dan did this or he can improve on this. But to me, players at any team, ultimately, if you let players decide who your head coach is, you're going to have issues.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of it.
No, I think that's fair.
Because I would have been like this. So when I played with, when I was in Atlanta, when Jerry Glanville was here, Taylor Smith would have said, hey, Chuck, what do you think about Jerry? I'd be like, hell yeah, let's bring him back.
This is a guy, it's important to point out for people who don't remember the history, Glanville was the guy that picked you out and said, you can play in this league, and really was really instrumental in helping you find a spot.
I love Jerry.
So obviously, if I asked Chuck Smith, do you want Jerry Glanville to remain as Falcons coach, given what he had invested in you? Of course you're going to say that.
I'm loving it. I'm going up there, Taylor. Matter of fact, I'm throwing Jerry on my shoulder. Jerry. Hey, Brandon. But look, and then it goes like this. So the next year, we end up getting June Jones. So June, they get rid of Jerry. Right. June gets the job. Everybody, and part of it is everybody loved June. Even though June helped run Deion Sanders out of town, but that's a whole nother story. But look, tough. So June gets the job. Yeah. I mean, players, coach, we're going to run the fun and gun. It's all fun. Jerry's gone. Jerry's just a tough coach. So June gets here, and remember I talked about players, and I'm not necessarily proud of this, but this is a part of my history. June gets the job. I absolutely hated the run and shoot. Mm-hmm. I hated it from day one, and at that time, so when
June, be hard on a defense.
Yeah, so when June gets the job, I think it's year 3 or 4 for me. Mm-hmm. I was in my prime, so I had power. Mm-hmm. So June, I think it was in '96. Hey, we were struggling. I came out and said, hey, we need until we get a defensive-minded head coach in Atlanta, we will forever be losers.
Did you say to the media?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mark Bradley wrote it. Hey, so
I gotta find this column.
You gotta find it. Mark Bradley wrote it. And in serious, and I said we'll never get to the Super Bowl until then. So I got suspended. For detriment to the team. And let me tell you how you remember, Brandon. How you'll remember this because you're a Falcon. You're a Falcon historian. It was the year we played Jacksonville, and Morton Anderson missed the kick.
Oh, I remember that when he slipped. Yeah.
Everybody, Falcon fan that from our day, remembers that. I was suspended for that game.
I got to go back and read this.
But the point was, I had power. So now Julio has power. He does. Yeah. But my thing is this, and I had the power to have influence. Sure. So if you have that influence, which I understand, I would use it. Dan's cool. I like DQ. D cool. I don't have no problem if he comes back or not. But me personally, I love to see Q come back. Mm-hmm. But again, I got to be fair to the process. Yeah. But when it comes to players, I mean, you like what you're doing. Julio's had success. Yeah. Matt's had success. Look at Grady. These guys getting paid. He drafted Deion. Mm-hmm. So I would be shocked if them boys didn't go up there and fight for him. I'd be shocked if they publicly wouldn't say it, and they're doing the right thing by doing what they're doing for Dan Quinn.
I love the comparison you made a minute ago between like Julio Jones and Barry Sanders because it's so similar. I don't know why this is, but it seems like when I was a kid growing up, you had more guys that were like good players and bad teams. Now, you have free agency now, and you've got a little bit more player movement, and so it seems like eventually a good player gets a chance to play on a good team. But, you had the Barry Sanders baseball. Dale Murphy, I know he won a Division 82, but he was like the Braves version of that. He's going to go out there and doing his job every single day.
Kevin Willis.
Yeah, Willis a little bit, yeah.
Kevin just played, did what he had to do. Dominic was, the highlight type guy, and I agree with you.
Now, I hope that Julio's ultimate legacy is not, hey, he played really well on some teams that were bad at the end of his career. I hope that's not what it is. But there's something to be said for still doing your job no matter what the scenario is. And that's one of the reasons why I can't quite buy Julio Jones' performance as a validation of Dan Quinn. Because as you said before, Julio's going to be Julio if I was the coach, right? He's not going to do his job any less, no matter who.
Before.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's a guy that does his job no matter what.
Man, listen, Julio Jones is what you see. That's what a real dog is. So I hear all these cats today. Some of the folks that are watching, you got kids or you on social media, they put this thing, everybody want to put the gorilla. Mm-hmm. So all the kids, if you're a dog or you put, you the gorilla. And too many people throw the goat out. Y'all need to tell your kids, if you're a kid, stop putting the little goat.
It is overused.
Everybody goat.
It's overused.
Everybody goat. Yeah. So look, they got the gorilla on there. Now, Julio Jones, that's who has the gorilla on there. Okay. That's a guy who's a dog. That's a guy who has, you want to give him that emoji, the muscle emoji, because Julio Jones. I
like that.
There's certain kind of guys, and I've talked about this, they're alpha dog. In the NFL, everybody thinks everybody is a dog because they're there. All right, you're a dog because you got this, and it's a prestigious thing you make to the league. But within that league, there's dogs and there's next level dogs. Yeah. Then you got triple OG dogs, like Reggie. You got a dog, double dog. But the point I'm saying is, he's a triple OG dog. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
I think it's great.
No matter when he's winning, he going 100%. Yeah. No matter when he's losing, he going 100%.
I think that's great.
And everybody in the NFL ain't like that. I'm just telling you. So,
I think you're absolutely right.
That's how it works.
Good stuff. Let me take a few comments here. AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Blake Robinson, thanks for the kind words. By the way, our last show before Christmas will be off on Monday, back in on Friday. So for those of you kind of in and out, you watch some of the show, you got to move on, get busy. We just appreciate you being here when you can. We appreciate you participating in the conversation with your comments. It means a lot to both Chuck and me to be able to do this show with you. and be able to talk Falcons with you. Really appreciate that. Sandy Mincy, also an interesting comment. I want to read this. Sandy says, remember when Sean Payton was on the chopping block in New Orleans? It's not going to be a bed of roses every season. Take the highs with the lows. Hashtag keep DQ. Is that a fair comparison? I mean, I've seen Sean Payton out-coach people. So even in the midst of a bad run, you knew the evidence of a good coach was there. Have we seen Quinn out-coach people enough to know that he's a good enough coach to weather the current storm the Falcons are in?
Well, is it 1-7 against Carolina, right? I mean, 7-1 against Carolina. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Winning over 90% against them. But I'll just put it like this, and there's a distinct difference. Sean Payton, what'd they go? 7-9. I know they went back-to-back. Was it 3 years in a row? They went back-to-back. I know the Saints, because everybody's like, there's 7-9 Saints, and he was on the chopping block. But there's one difference between us as Falcons and them. They get a pass because they got a ring. Sean Payton has earned the right to have a couple lean years because they already got the ring.
That's a very good point.
Outside that Falcons, if Dan Quinn had got that ring, if we had got the ring, I mean, he could have had 2-3 years of average.
Yeah.
But the difference is Sean Payton and Drew have a ring, so they have earned the right in Saints fans' eyes that you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, that's
Not
exactly right. Hey, let me ask you about this because Sean Jones brings this up on YouTube. Takk McKinley's situation, we mentioned the shoulder before. How big of a concern is this going into the offseason? McKinley's season done. He's going to deal with that injury, but more importantly, to be back healthy again for 2020. How concerned are you about that shoulder for McKinley right now?
I'm 100% concerned. It's a, it's a major problem. Takk McKinley came in with shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a defensive lineman with shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
Takk McKinley didn't get down in the three-point stance, if you ever noticed.
That's right.
Because if he can't put pressure on his shoulder consistently, he's had shoulder surgeries. And at this point, it makes actually Vic Beasley, his signing, actually even more important because I'm not counting Takk out. Takk is a situational pass rusher, and I'm worried if I'll ever get what I should get out of Takk because shoulders are one of those things as a defensive lineman you got to use. But it's going to be tough for Takk. So I'm already hoping Comiskey, we drafted him and in the third round, and I still would draft another edge guy coming up in the next draft.
Interesting stuff there. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. That's Chuck Smith. I'm Brandon Adams. Great to have you with us, and we really appreciate Miller Lite making it all possible, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. And, of course, here on AJC Falcons News Now, proud that the AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons, and it's been a great conversation with all of you all year on that. Let me talk Falcons offense for a second. I want to talk about Matt Ryan in particular. So I was looking at this for ESPN. They've been doing this thing where ranking like the best of the decade, various stuff, using a lot of the numbers from like Football Outsiders and stuff like that. The 2016 Falcons offense came, and now follow me on this for a second, came in as the number 10 offense of the decade. So I guess if we're talking about a decade's worth of football, 32 teams in the league, so 320 possible offenses. Of those 320, every team in the league, every year of the decade, Falcons were 10th best with the 2016 group, and you can make a case it should have been even higher. I think Matt Ryan's 7th best quarterbacking performance, his 2016 performance, I think, in these same kind of ratings and evaluations of the decade. Here is my most optimistic appraisal of the Falcons. That the remnants that made this one of the decade's best offenses, the remnants from Matt Ryan, which made him one of the decade's best quarterbacks, at least for a single season in 2016, enough of that's still here. That the Falcons can figure out the coaching situation, whether it be some way or another, Quinn staying. I think you need some new offensive blood here one way or another, new offensive ideas. If you can figure this out, there's enough of what made Atlanta good back then still left here. This Falcons offense can still find it. We just did a whole bunch on Julio Jones. It doesn't have to be an irrelevant finish to the Julio Jones career. The great level of play that he's showing you right now, I think it's still possible that he shows that for a playoff team, a Super Bowl contender. Matt Ryan, much the same way. I know this is maybe a little bit more hopeful than some Falcons fans want to be, just given how bad this season's been. But if you were one of the decade's best just 3 short years ago, you can find that again.
Yeah, you can find it, and it can even be better. Look at the pieces we've added that weren't there. Yeah. Ridley, 2 offensive linemen, first rounders that next year will have a whole year under their belt. Lindstrom, a little challenge. But offensive guard, I mean, you can make a quicker adjustment. To me, tackle where McGarry is, it's a longer development curve than for Lindstrom. But back to where I was at.
Yeah.
Look at where this offense is. Hooper's better. than they were when they were what year was that? 16? Mm-hmm. Okay, 16.
Yeah.
You got more components to be better. Mm-hmm. So as much as we look at, wow, the Falcons, can they get where they were? Absolutely they can. Mm-hmm. And look, again, let's look at this division. Tampa's defense ain't nothing. We've already seen Carolina, they got a lot of big names, but we shred them.
Yeah.
Atlanta just went against arguably the best defense in San Fran.
I mean, nice day that day. That was like old school Falcons offense for a minute there.
It's a push, right?
That's right.
Our offense versus their defense, if our offense is being exact, if we are the Falcons that Julio, we're clicking like 2016.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to be able to throw on anyone. They're going to make plays like Frisco, but but the Falcons offense. So as I continuously look at it, yeah, I think they can absolutely be better if all the pieces fall together. And one of the things that you've said the entire time that I agree with is the creativity on the offense and let those road runners run, figure out ways to get Julio, Ridley, Hooper, protect Matt, all those things. I think it could be an explosive, 2020.
Rocky Ramsey on YouTube asked an interesting question. He says, how many good years do you think Matt Ryan, Julio Jones have left? That's not an easy question to answer. Obviously, the health of both these guys is going to factor in that question. But the one thing we do know, not that many. I mean, for Ryan, for Julio Jones, it's not necessarily one more year, but it's not necessarily 10 more years either. It's, we're talking about a single digit, you can count them on, both your hands here, number of truly prime years left for both these quarterbacks. And you got to make sure you take advantage of that now. That means you got to have the pieces around them they need. I think Lindstrom and McGarry potentially steps in that direction. You need, a lot of things like this. You got to make sure your coaching situation is taken good care of. But however many good years it is left for Ryan and Julio, both of them still in their prime, but also kind of moving in the direction of the end of those prime years. You got to make sure you take advantage of this window while you've got it.
I don't see Matt Ryan going nowhere for years.
At least for a little while.
Matt Ryan never gets hurt. Matt Ryan has his toughness and longevity right now, and his ability to play and not be on the sideline. I think Matt Ryan, I see 4 or 5 years easy. I see Matt Ryan playing until he's 40. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I do. I see Matt, and again, and a lot of it I still think is going to be in Atlanta. Julio, I still think I'll say Julio Jones got a few years in him. But let me tell you why I think Julio Jones could even play more than people think. Because I think Atlanta, because he's Julio Jones. Yeah. He's arguably the greatest player we've ever had, one of the GOATs of all time, right? Sure. Receiver. He's got the kind of ownership.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll let Julio. Okay, Julio, you just playing on third down.
Okay.
I mean, and that's not from a salary cap standpoint. Julio, he's such a dynamic receiver. You get to the point where Julio, you don't ever practice. Mm-hmm. Julio, we got a chair sitting out there for you, Julio, and you watching. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, and you would do whatever you got to do. And I believe, especially for the Falcons. Now, this wouldn't work with the Rooneys in Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But here in Atlanta, I believe they will get to the point where Julio, snaps are cut down considerably. Okay. And he will never get the treatment that Roddy White got in the end. How they kind of, clowned around with him, put him out there when they knew they weren't going to use him. Yeah. So I just think Julio, I think Julio get 3 or 4 years left in him because I think they're willing to manage his reps.
Of course, all this talk about the Falcons and ranking amongst the decade's best offense back in 2016 reminded me of something that Matt Ryan said this week. Funny story that then offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan had told him back in 2015, before the record-setting offensive performance of the year later. Ryan struggled with some interceptions at the time, and Ryan told a really funny story about what Shanahan said then. But the overall message of this story, I think, is something the Falcons and Ryan in particular still uses today. This is a good thing to hear on the heels of what we just spoke about. Here's Matt Ryan.
I'll never forget, Kyle Shanahan told me one time I was throwing a bunch of picks. I had a bunch of picks maybe in 2015. He was like, the problem is you throw such a catchable ball, even when you miss, those other guys are able to catch it too. I was like, man, I don't know if that's a compliment or I don't know how to take it. But I don't know. I guess I've just always kind of thrown it the way I throw it, and I feel like I throw with anticipation, and so I try and put it in spots on time and in the right place, and just try and have those guys trust me that I'm going to make good decisions for them.
So I think that's really funny that, hey, it's a catchable ball even when the other team's trying to catch it, but the whole notion of the work that Ryan goes through to make sure that whether it be Ridley or Hooper or Julio or whomever else, that he's delivering it where they can catch it. I mean, listen, that's a skill that you can use. And that's the kind of thing when you talk about, the window being a little longer for Ryan than maybe some people realize. delivering a catchable ball is a good way to hang around this league for quite some time.
Yeah, and he does that for
Yeah.
the most part. You get protected, he does a good job, right? But something about Matt Ryan, I'll tell you also, because we talked about longevity, because, you know, when Matt is rolling, he's rolling,
Yeah.
right? And then he's been consistent. Over the years, he's been consistent. I'm not getting into the elite thing, but Matt Ryan has been, for the most part, the least of our problems. There have been times, hey, we all have our, you know, situations where we're not playing as well. But Matt Ryan is smart enough also, I believe, and the Falcons will be smart enough because they know what they got. I don't think they're willing to risk, as long as Julio playing and Matt Ryan here, I think they feel like they got a chance to win the Super Bowl. But so from Matt Ryan's standpoint, I believe Matt also, when we build all this other stuff we're talking about with this Falcons, okay, we want to, the biggest thing was we're going to be fast and physical. We're going to have a premier defense.
Yeah.
Okay, we ain't got that yet. But so as Matt Ryan, they keep throwing with the offense. They keep, you know, working towards, you know, being a team that competes for 30 points a game. Then the defense gets better, and we can do what? We can have a Garoppolo. We can have a game manager, and that could become Matt Ryan as he gets older. But it's also predicated on the development of the young guys the guys in their prime on defense, the draft. So just as well, we got the true fronts we're developing. Oh, wow, he's hurt. You know, we don't know if he's going to be as good. You know what I mean? So when you look at some of these guys, Sanat, who should eventually be in the nose guard.
Yeah.
It's like we're taking one step forward and taking one step back. Because the defense at one point was going to be the calling card.
Yeah.
Right? So now, to me, Matt Ryan will continue to go. We'll see. I believe the best chance for the Falcons to win the Super Bowl is through offense.
Yeah.
But I think Matt's still going to be here if the Falcons can develop a defense. So Matt's longevity, in my opinion, has a lot to do with if the defense one day can help him where he don't have to throw the ball 40 times to win.
Let me get a couple comments here. JJ Green says, the look of the offense around the NFL is changing. Mobile quarterbacks are the new look. And obviously the name that comes to mind there first and foremost is Lamar Jackson. Here's where I am on Jackson right now, though. People say, what's leading to him having a great season? It's because he's mobile. Honestly, I think Jackson's great because he's great. And it just so happens he's a mobile quarterback. Lamar Jackson is, I think, in a category all of his own. And yeah, you'd love to have a guy that's doing what he's doing, obviously when you add the legs into that. But I don't know that Lamar Jackson's necessarily ushering in a new age for other quarterbacks as much as he is sort of redefining what success looks like at the position for this year. You know, people will mention Kyler Murray. He's also statistically having a good year. But I'm not trading Ryan for Murray right now, even though Murray's much, much younger. I'm not quite so sure what Murray's future is. Lamar Jackson, I think I have an idea.
Pretty short, too.
Yeah,
I know. I'm wrong for that. I'm sorry.
That's a little bit of an issue. But, I mean, Lamar Jackson is what he is. Obviously, people would love to have Lamar Jackson. But Jackson's sort of a category by himself right now. Some of the other guys are doing it with their arms and their legs this year. Let's wait and see how much they win. I mean, this is still a league where being a good throwing quarterback is a way to win a Super Bowl. There's still a very good chance that the quarterback who wins the Super Bowl this year will be more of a drop-back variety.
I just think Matt Ryan and right now Tom Brady and Drew Brees, you know, somewhere in the middle of the season, they're just getting caught. It's just been a barn burner of a year where all these all these movement-driven quarterbacks are having success. You know what I'm saying? So, but I tell you the one that really is kind of threw all these guys for a loop is Kyle Allen in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, dude is big and he can run. Right, Carson Wentz. I mean, he's not doing great right now, but he can run.
Yeah.
So
playing, by the way, very well for Philadelphia right now with zero help at receiver.
Right,
zero
help. So I'm not. Look, I like Matt Ryan. I want Matt to stay because I don't know what else we could get. Right.
Yeah.
But after when you decide to go, Matt, you know I love you. We super cool, Matt. Whenever that time comes, you here as long as you want to be. But after that, I need me a guy that can move.
Yeah.
I want me a Russell Wilson.
Okay. Fair enough.
Want, not even just Russell Wilson. I want a guy, just the new era. I just see where the defenses are coming.
Yeah.
I just see the RPOs, but it's one of those things.
Let me give you one more comment on this, then I want to talk about something different before we have to wrap up. Mark Brantley says about Matt Ryan, please, please, please let Ryan do more no huddle. Ryan's the best play caller we've ever had, and I expect him to do a Brady-like 40-ish career. That's really interesting, the idea of how long he might be able to hold on. But this is one of those things, when I think about new offensive ideas for Atlanta, this is kind of where I'm at. I love the idea of more of a no-huddle style for Ryan. I'm a big believer that the best offensive minds in the NFL going forward are going to be the offensive play callers that minimize the need for a great offensive line. You know, I've talked about this before. There are so few great linemen now that if you require a great line to have a great offense, you're essentially doomed, right? You got to have somebody that can create quick action offense. Ryan, good decision maker, so allow him to make those decisions quickly. Move more quickly with a no-huddle offense. The strength of your team are your pass catchers, your two receivers, Jones and Ridley, your tight end Hooper. So why not try to deliver them the football as much as possible? I agree with Mark on this. If Ryan returns the Falcons to glory, if he himself kind of returns to glory, Julio Jones has big years here at the end of his prime for Atlanta. That to me is how it happens. With a quick strike, up-tempo, possibly more no-huddle offense. I agree with Mark on that 100%.
Well, yeah, I like what he did in the last game, but how do we know that Matt's not involved with the adjustments, the audibles? I can tell you this right now. When they're in the meeting room, Matt has a say in what he's running.
Yeah.
Matt has a say on the sets, the offense, So to me, it's a partnership. And again, I'm not in there. Now, I'm just speaking from my opinion, but I got to believe with the guy who won the MVP, he ain't sitting in the room and the coach is Dirk Cutter just saying, hey, we're going to do this. No matter what you want, Matt, this is what I want to do. You understand what I'm saying? So, but to me, that's the most important coordinator I want to see. Okay. I want a coordinator to say, hey, Matt, what do you think works best? And you know what? Let me shape you and give you a few ideas that can make us better. But Matt knows what his skill set is. Him and Julio, I would love for him. Now, to me, that's where I'm going with it. Now, I would love for them to have one last year said, hey, you know what? Let us help interview the coordinator.
Okay.
Let us, because we are them guys are absolute. When it comes to football, those guys know more offensive football than I can dream of.
Okay.
And probably remember, so at a high level, Dirk Cutter ain't never been this level as far as a player. So there's something to be said where players know more than people give them credit. It drives me crazy. Well, you guys aren't coaches. Man, these cats, remember, Julio Jones come from Bama, Matt Ryan come from Boston College. They know offense. But I agree with I would love for Matt Ryan to take as much responsibility as he can, but I hope that what we're talking about is already happening.
It was the 100th year of the NFL, and because of that, they're doing a special Hall of Fame class this year, a little bit bigger induction, and a couple of the names as finalists for consideration. Former Falcons linebacker Tommy Nobis, and your former coach, at least one of your coaches when you were in Atlanta, Dan Reeves. Now, a lot of the Reeves resume is really predating his time in Atlanta, multiple Super Bowl appearances as a coach for the Denver Broncos, for instance.
Ring of Honor guy in Denver.
That's a very, very good point.
Should be one, real quick, sorry. Should be one here in Atlanta, too. For his little time here, what he brought to the city, Dan Reeves should be in there.
Because for Reeves, it's more than just the 98 NFC Championship team. First team to ever win a playoff game at Lambeau Field. He was the coach for that team there as well. So I like the idea of a Ring of Honor consideration for Reeves. I think that's great. On Nobis, though, you and I are both too young to have seen him play. At least I think you're too young to have seen him play.
I'm turning 50 tomorrow. It's like that.
I wasn't sure when he stopped. No, I wasn't sure when he stopped playing. I know I'm too young to have seen Tommy Nobis play, and you are as well.
Yeah,
but the one thing I've heard from everybody is, anybody who saw him play, had Tommy Nobis played for the Cowboys, played for the Steelers, played for the Packers, Tommy Nobis in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've talked to so many people who I do sort of view as football historians that they believe that Nobis' standing as a Hall of Fame inductee is without question. If it takes a special centennial season to get that done, however it needs to happen, I am absolutely in favor of Tommy Nobis getting Hall of Fame induction.
People always say he was better than Dick Buckus, just on the wrong team.
That's really
you know what I mean. A lot of people say that. I got to know Tommy. He was a really cool guy, tough guy. Was around a lot, especially when I was with the Falcons.
Sure.
But
it's funny you said that about being I don't mean to cut you off. It's funny you said about being a tough guy. So in a previous life, I used to be at Falcons games almost every Sunday, and in the press box, he would always sit right behind me. And it's one of those things of, that's Tommy Nobis. He just even, post-playing career, sitting in the press box of the old Georgia Dome, he just gave off this tough guy vibe of, you didn't want to mess with him even then.
No, you didn't. He looked like a football player.
He really did.
Tommy looked like he had smashed the head against a few people.
First draft pick of this organization.
No question. But you know what? I think Tommy deserves that opportunity. But I think when you look at Dan Reeves, it's really intriguing. Dan Reeves, when you look at who he really is also as a player, he played for the Cowboys. He played in the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, he played in the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, Dan was like a big. He was the best in the game.
It's a really good point. So you forget how good of a player he was.
Yeah. So when you look at the book of work for what Dan did as a player, as a GM, as executive, and at different multiple organizations, he deserves to go in. Because if you're putting in, some of these, you put in media guys, you putting in GMs that,
Right.
He's been a head coach, been a GM, and been successful with all of them. I just think Dan's book of work, they got to put more into that. You know what I'm saying? Because you got guys that's getting in there you know what I'm saying, that are just one-dimensional. But, hey, I'm excited about, two guys that are Falcons.
I'm proud to see the consideration for both those guys, and I know family of Tommy Nobis, obviously Coach Reeves will be paying close attention to this, and I think those are honors well deserved.
I'm going to call Dan.
For both men.
As soon as I get out of here, I'm going to call
DR.
that's
awesome to hear.
Check on the old man.
That's awesome to hear. Hey, before we wrap things up on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, let's take a quick look at the upcoming weekend schedule. Should remind you, there are Saturday games here this weekend, here late in the season. No college football, so the NFL will kind of hop in there and be a part of that. So it's Houston, Dallas, Buffalo, New England, Rams, San Francisco. Those are your 3 Saturday games, is that right? Those are your 3 Saturday games here this weekend. And really all 3 of those games bring a lot to the table. Houston, after getting the win last week at Tennessee. Dallas obviously got a lot to play for. Buffalo, New England, AFC East.
Game.
Rams, San Francisco. Rams needing a win after a pretty ugly performance against Dallas. Fun slate there on Saturday.
Yeah, it is. I like what's going on, man. Let me tell you this. That Buffalo-New England game, I'm really intrigued. Think about all the demons. Listen, New England has absolutely dominated for way too long in the AFC East.
No doubt about that. Then you get into not quite as much going on Sunday, at least in terms of the early slate here. Baltimore, Cleveland, Saints in Tennessee, Carolina, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Miami, Pittsburgh and the Jets, Giants, Washington. Stop me when you hear one that sounds great to you. So a lot of really fun action here on Saturday, although a lot of really fun action all the way around there.
If you like football, you like it. I'm going to tell you one. Was that Green Bay, Minnesota game? Be some good action there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty fun. Talk about 100 years with the NFL. An old school, they call it now the NFC North, but old school football there indeed. We appreciate you being here, part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Appreciate Miller Lite making it all possible. Don't forget you're looking for a great holiday gift this time of year. AJ subscription makes a lot of sense there. Subscribe.ajc.com for a lot more of that. And by the way, always really fun when Chuck Smith here this time of year brings in a really cool piece of Falcons history that he was a part of. And today it's actually unique because we are actually on the anniversary of this occurring 21 years ago.
Exactly. December 20th, 1998, we won the NFC West in Detroit. It was a great game. So
talk about old stadiums.
Yeah.
How about
the Silver Dome. You're right.
Silver Dome. That's good stuff.
Silver Dome. All right, here we go.
There you go. I like that. Game ball.
Yeah,
I like how they painted the game balls. We talked about that before.
They probably do it now a lot better, but this is old school. This was a game ball. The entire team got one.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was a close game. We knocked off Detroit. Detroit was a pretty good team back in those days. And
second time in, I shouldn't say this, but I shouldn't say how many times they won the division, but certainly won the division in 1998.
Throwback. NFC West.
Yeah. Rams,
Falcons,
49ers.
NFC West, Falcons. How crazy that sound now, but it was December 20th.
That's back when the Cardinals were in the East, the Falcons were in the West. None of that made any sense.
Made no sense.
Yeah.
Seattle was in the
AFC back then.
Yep. So that was a little history. I don't know if I had a great game, but we all got game balls.
I'll tell you this.
It was a tough game for me, I remember.
For a lot of Falcons fans, that 98 season, incredible memories, and always fun to be able to go back and reminisce about that.
I'm always glad to share a little bit.
Hey, hope you have a Merry Christmas, Chuck. Thank you so much for a lot of fun here.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
All of you, happy holiday, Merry Christmas to all of you. We'll see you back here a week from today. No show for us on Monday, but back here on Friday, 1 p.m., looking at the big finale against the Bucs, what happened against the Jags, and a very busy offseason with the Atlanta Falcons. We'll look forward to talking to you then here on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.